You know, for our entire lives, we've had this miracle that we barely even notice anymore: instant communication. I mean, the ability to send a thought, a command, even just an I love you across the entire planet in, what, milliseconds? We just take it for granted. But what happens to us, to our society, when that miracle just ends? What happens when the speed of light itself is just not fast enough?
All right, let's really get into this. You have to remember, for almost all of human history, we were patient. We had to be. Empires and economies were built in that silence. The quiet between sending a message and getting a reply. So this whole age of instant connection we're living in, it's not the norm, not at all. It's actually a pretty brief, kind of fragile experiment. And now, as we start looking out into the solar system, that experiment is about to slam right into the hard wall of physics.
So, first up, let's just take a second to appreciate the incredible illusion we've all built for ourselves. For centuries, we've basically been engineering distance right out of existence, creating this single synchronized global heartbeat. I mean, just look at how fast things changed. A message that used to take a runner 2 weeks to carry, now it can go around the entire world in the time it takes you to blink. We went from ships taking months to telegraphs taking minutes, and now we've got fiber optics that connect us in milliseconds. We've effectively collapsed the planet into a single point. And what that's done is create this feeling of, well, global simultaneity. We just assume that everything, awareness, commands, consequences, it all happens in the exact same now for everyone. But here's the catch. That's a really new idea, and it's a very earthbound one. And the cosmos, well, it's about to call our bluff. All right, so this brings us to the core problem, the central conflict of this whole story. The second we step off-world, we hit a speed limit that we absolutely cannot break. And it's not a technological one. It's a law of reality itself. Delay is coming back, and it's bringing consequence with it. So what does 4 minutes actually feel like? Well, at its closest point, that's how long it takes a signal to get to Mars. One way. A simple back-and-forth conversation, that's now an 8-minute round trip. It's not a conversation anymore, it's like exchanging letters. And trying to control a rover in real time? Forget about it. You can't just joystick it around a rock when your command takes 4 minutes to get there. And remember, this is just our next-door neighbor in the solar system. Okay, now let's push out further, to Saturn. Suddenly, you're looking at over an hour, one way. Just imagine there's an emergency, a meteoroid strike or a life support failure. You blast out a warning message, and then you just wait for an entire hour in total silence. You have no idea if they even got your message, let alone if they could do anything about it. That is the brutal reality of delay. And what if we go to the very edge of our solar system, to the Oort cloud? Well, now we're not talking about minutes or hours. We are talking about a year, a full year for one packet of data to make a one-way trip. Think about that. You could send a message to your great-grandkids, and they might get it before you get a reply to a message you sent today. So this is the question that just changes everything, right? When there's no shared now, how on earth do you hold a civilization together? How can a government possibly rule? How does the stock market even work? Heck, how do you maintain a simple relationship across that kind of silence? And this leads us to this really fascinating idea, chronopolitics. It's basically the study of power at the speed of its signals. Think about it. Power has always been about how fast you can send a command and see it carried out. But what happens when your command arrives long after a crisis is over? Well, direct control becomes a complete illusion. Authority isn't about giving orders anymore. It has to become something else, something built on trust, on pre-approved protocols, and at the end of the day, on faith. Faith that the people out there are acting on your original intent. Okay, so how do you actually build that? How do we reinvent the absolute foundations of our society, things like law and money, so they can actually work across these huge, silent gaps in time and space? Well, you can see the fundamental shift right here. Here on Earth, our systems are all built on human presence and checking things in real time. You've got a judge, a cop, a bank teller. But out in space, that whole model just shatters. Authority can't be a person. It has to be an automated protocol. Trust can't be verified now. It has to be verified later. And the law? It has to be executed by code. Because let's be real, when your oxygen is venting into space, you can't wait 20 minutes for a human to make a ruling. So the proposed solution is this new kind of digital infrastructure, which the source material calls the continuity stack. And it's probably better to think of it less like a government and more like a shared, trusted operating system for an entire society. It's a system where your life support, your bank account, and your legal rights are all managed by the exact same synchronized automated data layer. The big question isn't who is in charge anymore. The big question is the system coherent and working? Just keeping things going, continuity itself. That's the new source of legitimacy.
And a reality like this doesn't just change our systems, it completely redefines what it even means to be a citizen. I mean, when your actual survival depends more on a piece of shared software than a shared piece of land, where does your allegiance lie? It naturally shifts from territory to infrastructure. So, your identity isn't just about the one place you're born anymore. It becomes this stack of affiliations. You'll have your Earth passport, sure, but you'll also have the license for your habitat and the local constitution that's literally encoded into its life support software. Then there's your guild membership, the company that gives you work and resources. And finally, your network identity, which is basically the cryptographic key that proves you're you. You don't really belong to a state anymore. You belong to a bundle of service agreements.
So, when you put all of these pieces together, what does the future of human civilization even look like? Well, it's not some unified galactic empire. Not at all. It's something much more like a diverse, sprawling, and totally out-of-sync network. A civilization with many centers and many, many different clocks.
Because it isn't just communication that's going to splinter. Time itself is going to diverge. A day on Mars, for example, is about 40 minutes longer than an Earth day. A Martian year is almost twice as long as ours. So just try to imagine coordinating a family holiday when your calendars are drifting further and further apart every single year. Our most basic rhythms of life, of ritual, of memory, they're all going to break apart. And that's how you forge deeply, deeply different cultures.
And this is what's being called the polycentric interregnum. See, with no single capital, no Earth central that can rule across the light speed delay, humanity just becomes this network of independent centers, each one operating on its own clock, its own rhythm. We'll be connected, for sure, but we won't be whole. We'll be a federation that's held together by shared code and mutual need, not by a shared flag. And at the end of the day, it all comes back to this one idea. In an environment where every single breath you take is engineered and every connection you have is fragile, the most important thing, the highest virtue, it isn't power. It isn't even progress. It's just continuity. It's the simple, profound ability to keep the whole system running, to keep it coherent across those vast, silent gaps between worlds. Which leaves us with one last and pretty profound question. If we can no longer share a present moment, if we can't inhabit the same now, what actually binds us together? Is a shared history going to be enough to guarantee a shared future? That, right there, is the fundamental challenge that Astropolitics puts in front of all of us.